doing to keep us safe.
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. My kids, as they were growing up, said they could hear me. The first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to express a thank you. On January 8th this year, I received a letter. And this letter was signed by Pastor Ernie Sanders and Denver Saline of the Geauga County Tea Party. You may recall that law enforcement has come under a lot of fire. And please, I'm not here saying that we don't have some bad apples too. I think like every profession.
Amen.
But I like to believe that in Geauga County we have a lot of good ones. And your letter of encouragement meant a lot to the men and women at Geauga County Sheriff's Office. And I thank you for sending that. It was encouraging them to continue to do their job, do it right. And thank you for that. It was a breath of fresh air when we, at that time, we've got people threatening the lives of officers, the lives of retired officers, etc. So thank you very much for that.
It was our honor to do that. We know that you guys have a tough job as it is, and we were seeing what was happening, the way that the media was coming after you, and so we want you to know we got your back.
And I appreciate that. And one short story. February 27, 2012, we had a horrible event at Chardon High School. Part of the initial response, long story short, I'm guarding the cafeteria where most of the victims were. I had a deputy coming behind me, was doing triage on the wounded, trying to help them. And the deputy looks up at me at a point and says, I need to see my own kids. See, I give every one of my employees, whether you're the mechanic, deputy, chief deputy, corrections officer, dispatcher, the oath of office. It's not just words, it's a promise.
Amen.
The men and women of Geauga County made good that day, that promise, doing their duty without yet knowing the fate of their family. So thank you for that letter. Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Good. This presentation had the privilege of giving to the Ohio Fair Managers Association down in Columbus. Commissioner Claypool was there, and we talked about what we do in Geauga County as part of a safety plan for the fair. The fair, without a doubt, the single largest public event that we have in this county. And how do you manage the safety? The first thing is, and I'd like to start with this, we truly have partnered with the Fair Board. If you think about it, we do share that common concern, that common desire that this be a safe family fair. Again, our family, neighbors, friends come to this fair. Oh, I can. Okay. You good?
He's not a technology
No.
sheriff.
No. Well, it's that one. Yeah, okay, there it works, okay. And again, I did this down in Columbus, but to give you an idea, it's Geauga County. Our fair is located in Burton. Right there. And it's located on the county fairground. Okay. How do we handle fair security? A little bit of a background. And I'm firmly committed. The sheriff has played a role in fair security in Geauga County for decades. In this April, I will start my 40th year with the sheriff's office. I have always worked with fair. So personally, I could go back and sit there and say, for 4 decades, yes. But the sheriff has always been there. I believe that the sheriff has a vested interest in providing security for the fair. Again, the single largest event in the county. We will see, on an average year, 200,000 visitors. come to the fairgrounds during the 5-day period. Ohio Revised Code says that the sheriff shall respond to breaches of the peace. Just a fancy way of saying calls, crimes. The sheriff has an obligation to do that. We use a contract with the fair. And the contract, the fair pays for the security, the personnel, the deputies, while they're working at the fairgrounds. This concept is not unique to the fair. The Maple Festival pays for additional law enforcement, etc., during the course of the Maple Festival as well. The most important thing is it spells out duties, what we're going to do, but it also gives us certain authority. And that authority, for example, at midnight, the ability to close gates, have a gate open, control in and out traffic. If you think about it, a lot of vendors, a lot of displays, even 4-H projects, pretty good, and none of it under lock and key. An opportunity for theft. So by having authority to do that from the property managers, the property owners, it helps us quite a bit. So that's one of the biggest reasons that we have a contract. We also plan. Pastor Ernie, Commissioner Claypole, I'm a big one on planning and having contingency plans. I was in Columbus today, and if road conditions, my obligations in Columbus kept me long, I had a plan B ready to go tonight, so that you folks weren't stranded. And again, it's the same kind of thing here. The planning for next year's fair started at the conclusion of this year's fair. It begins with an open-end discussion of concerns. This is not designed to point fingers and cause blame, but a review. What went good? What made us feel uneasy? What do we need to improve? Trends, things. And we do that at the end of the fair, not months later, so that you haven't forgotten. It's still sharp in your mind. You remember these things. Communication is open between concession companies and the fair to ensure a safe fair. I mentioned that I go to the Ohio Fair Managers meeting down in Columbus. The vendors, the ride companies, the various concession companies are down there as well. Part of my time is spent meeting with the owners, meeting with the ride company, and talking to them and assuring them that we actually are on the same page. We both want a safe fair. No one, the fair, the sheriff, nor the ride company, would want a pedophile working down in what we call Kitty Lane. That would be, potential would be terrible. But the very least that would come out of that is people would stop coming to the fair. More importantly, they wouldn't come to the rides. So we have their attention. As the fair approaches, we have more meetings, and we start to discuss the schedule. We look at what entertainers are coming, who's going to be there Thursday night, what's Friday, what's going on Saturday, the different events, so we can start planning, allocating our resources, manpower, what's going on. We also, it's important to discuss what other fairs are experiencing during the year. What's going on? Have there been gang activity, groups coming, things that have caused problems at the fair, any theft trends, etc., that we should be aware of as well. We talk about that. And the other thing we do, we work to establish a chain of command for the sheriff and the fair board. And this is not to hinder communication, but to ensure it. If we have two people, a deputy and so on, yes, they can talk, but decisions and various other things are run up the various chains, either at the sheriff's office or the fair board, to ensure everybody knows what's going on, that we're all on the same page and we're aware of what's happening. We meet with the fire chief and we review the NIMS plan. Now this is a National Incident Management System. National not referring that it's managed by the federal government. National referring to a common plan so that we all talk the same language, we understand things when we have to call in perhaps outside resources to help. Again, an example of that, the Chardon incident, brought resources from throughout Geauga County, outside Geauga County. Even the FBI came in and worked for us. Well, we're talking the same thing. Out west, for example, a fire department tanker out west is a big tank under an airplane or helicopter. And they scoop up out of the pond or lake, and they fight the fires. In Geauga County, I'm telling you, we all know what a tanker is. It's mounted on wheels, we call it a truck. But that type of nomenclature, being on the same page. My dog is here, K9 unit, state certified narcotics dog. If Lake County calls for a K9, that might be the wrong dog. Okay? Good for working small places finding drugs, but not what we want to track a burglar, to track a bad guy, the wrong dog. So again, this plan helps ensure that jurisdictions and agencies are on the same page. Sheriff, myself, we review and update operational plans. What's changed, equipment change, manpower, etc. We actually look at the plans. We saved them from the previous year, and we looked at them to ensure that they're still applicable this year. I'm pretty good with this, huh? There we go. The next thing we do, fair security, we do background checks for workers. And that relationship that I talked about, meeting with the ride companies, meeting with the various vendors, part of that is to do background checks. We are used to it. Any teachers here? Okay, a teacher. Did you have to do a background check for your teaching certificate? Okay. I did. Makes sense, right? These are common things. You're going to be engaged with our children, coaches, scout leaders, Boy and Girl Scout. These kinds of things are performed routinely. We should do the same thing for the outside people coming in that are going to have contact with our children and people. So we meet with the ride company, and the night before the fair opens, they give us a list of their employees, of who's to be working. Now, they, during our course of meeting with them and getting them on board with this, they were reluctant to give Social Security numbers. I said, I don't need Social Security numbers. If you give me a name and a date of birth, I'll be able to tell you their Social Security number. We have to identify us, but I don't want their financial information. That's not what I'm looking for. Okay. And we run checks. We run checks through our own in-house programs. Okay. And that's what we refer to as CAD, Computer Assisted Dispatch. And then we also run OLEG, Ohio checks, but we're looking for criminal records, warrants. I don't care if you got a parking ticket down in Hamilton County and didn't pay it, but I care if you've got a felony warrant out of Florida for kidnapping, assault, a sex offense, etc. Okay? We create binders with pictures of all registered sex offenders in Geauga County, so that our people have a picture ready, handy, right there, and can look at it. And yes, we do have some. We have about 35 right now that we monitor and check on in Geauga County. Fair security, I mentioned before, the gates are locked down at midnight, and there's only one entrance. Okay? And we control the entrance. We check people in, we check people out. The idea is not that they can't come. We want to ensure that they have business at the fairgrounds. The fair is closed. 4-H kids are sleeping in one area. We've got vendors displays in another area. Who's coming onto these fairgrounds? Do they have reason to come on when it's closed? You do the same thing for a business. You do the same thing at a store when it's closed. And we work with real-time information sharing. This is an important part. This is something we do as a sheriff's office routinely. We share information with our personnel. We share information with Burton Village Police Department, the surrounding areas, and again, looking for trends, helping each other. If criminals don't take out a franchise. And it doesn't limit them to one geographic area. They'll go outside of communities. They'll go to a different one. So this real-time sharing of information is very important. Okay, thank you. Thank you. We use technology. Okay. That should come as no surprise to folks. Everyone uses technology. We certainly use two-way radios, walkie-talkies, car radios, to communicate. If you can't communicate, you can't coordinate. And we're a safety individual, then not a safety force. We can't communicate. We use mobile data terminals. That's a fancy term for computers in cars. Okay, remote computers that allow us to access other databases. So we had this gentleman on a stop on an encounter. We want to find out, is there a warrant? I'm going to let you know, the bad guys lie. You act surprised. They lie. Okay, they'll make up a name. They'll tell me, no, my name is Bill Frankton. Really? Really? Why? Because there might be a warrant. Okay. We don't want you to know who we are. Well, we can, in the car, check Bill Frankton. We can actually pull up the driver's license picture and take a look and go, you don't look like Bill Frankton. Bill Frankton's 22 years old. Weighs a lot more than you. It's an old picture, right? It's like, that kind of thing. And that does happen. Cameras, and we'll talk a little bit about that. How many here have a cell phone? How many of your cell phones have cameras? Okay. We use cameras. Cameras are important. There's cameras that can monitor things that go on during the fair. There's also cameras people use. And I'll give you one important thing, but I got a special slide for that. We have another device we call license plate readers. And if you ever drive by that, we have several cars that are equipped with those. And they're mounted on the vehicle, and they read license plates. And what they do is, as you're driving a cruiser down the road, and a car coming at you, or you drove past the car, it's capturing an image of the car. The computer isolates the license plate and then checks that license plate to wanted or warrants or stolen vehicle files. And we're running checks. Yes, we do get hits. Yes, we do make arrests. It's not based off of this. If your car was stolen, this is one way that we're able to start looking for it. That license plate reader also helps us at the fair. We can go through and check who has come. Have we got people coming into our fairgrounds, be they gangs, criminals, etc., and get information on that very, very quickly. There is another thing called facial recognition. Remember I talked about cameras? It's restricted, it's controlled, it requires special authorization. But if we get a picture of a couple of criminals, your turn. We can, if that picture is clear enough, a surveillance camera, gas station robbery, drugstore robbery, and the pictures of decent quality, we can cause that picture to be compared to driver's license and state ID photographs in an effort to learn the identity of who this individual is. Okay? Facial recognition. And we use fingerprint readers. We have portable devices, not a whole lot bigger than this remote, that if we don't believe who you are when you're trying to come in at night, we can actually have you touch it, and it'll read a fingerprint and cross-check you again. We're looking for felons, we're looking for warrants, we're looking for people that are here to victimize us. Come on. There we go. Thank you. No, we went the wrong way. Okay. The other thing, cell phones, smartphones, and emergency notification systems have become very, very important. We recognize folks have cell phones. So we started incorporating these things into our plan. Okay. You see, we have emergency notification system. We have a system at the sheriff's office that we use every day to help call out the volunteer firemen. We'll send a radio message out, but we can also send a text message to large groups of cell phones, the volunteer firemen. House on fire, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Main Street. Okay. Boom, and it goes out to everybody that we have signed up. We have created groups as part of our pre-plans with the fair officials. So should we have a child come up missing, we can send out the message to all the gates, to all the fair workers. We have a missing child, 3 years old, little girl, a description. They know to go to their gates. It's pre-assigned, more eyes looking for us. Smartphones. We have a safety tip that we post and put out. And those of us, grandparents or parents, if you take your grandchildren, children on an outing, and you go someplace, it could be the fair, perhaps at Cedar Point, maybe you're just going to the IX Center, please consider with your phone taking a picture of your children when you arrive. Okay? It costs you nothing. You have the photograph. If something happens, you can give us that picture, and we can cause that to go out, for example, at the fair. So people now know what to look for. Let me guess, we have a missing 14-year-old girl. Well, she's either blonde, brunette, or redhead. Okay? Big surprise, wearing blue jeans. Like, you know, right? I mean, okay? We've really nailed it down. But imagine a photograph that we can immediately send out to help cause. When you're all done, perhaps you got a nice souvenir picture of that day. You can delete it if you want, but we do encourage it. That, again, striving to use technology to try and keep our families safe. Skip, please.
It's pointed at Skip.
Okay, and this is what I talked about, and we call it a snap, but take a picture. If you have one, I can say, okay, would you send it to me? Here's my cell phone number, 440-666-5219, send me your photograph. Boom, I got it. I can then cause it to go into the system, and we send it, so the gate people at the gates can go, okay. Whoa, there she is. Questions and thoughts on that? I mean, it's cheap, it's free. We really suggest people use it. Go ahead, Skip. Next one. We work on scheduling a manpower. 3 o'clock in the morning, there are fewer people working than 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a big show day, obviously. We keep a close eye on the weather. That can affect manpower needs, etc. But we also have to coordinate the fair with the other needs of the county. In Geauga County, the fair is on Labor Day weekend. That's a busy weekend for us, period, let alone run 200,000 people in 5 days through a fair. So that coordinated. Okay? We have had occasions where we've had calls, I'll refer to out in the county, major incidents where we've actually drawn some resources from the fair to go there and address that. We can also use outsiders are deputies that are outside of the fair that are working normally to help us monitor traffic conditions. How's it looking on 87? Is it starting to back up? What do we need to do? And working together. We also ensure that we have a supervisor on duty at all times. Obviously important. Somebody's got to be in charge. But that person, we share that individual's identity with the fair board officials. So if they have a question, they know they call Sergeant Joe or Lieutenant Gary or Sheriff Dansden. And we give them the cell phone numbers, et cetera, so they can make quick contact. Again, ensuring that cooperation, that the communication exists, that they know who to get a hold of so we can make things happen. And again, communications is critical, open, candid communications. Cell phone numbers, 24 access to key individuals provided. I was talking with Commissioner Claypool, and I was asked a week ago, what's a typical day like for the sheriff? And so my typical day started July 18th, 2003, when I became sheriff. I have a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week, 365-day a year operation. I will get woke up tonight. Okay? I mean, that's going to happen. I'm going to get text messages. Things are going to happen. I will get phone calls probably after I leave here. And I'll get phone calls in the morning. But that is important. And I suggest to people that if it's important enough that they feel the need to call you at that time, you need to be available to take care of that. So that 24-hour access to key individuals, not just with the sheriff's office, but also the fair board. If we have a concern, a problem, a power outage, something strike, the fairgrounds, we know who we need to get a hold of, maintenance work, veterinarians, someone taking care of the livestock animals, etc. We have that. Contact information shared for supervisors. Again, the chain of command, we want the fair board to know who's in charge of our operation, vice versa. The other thing that's important is we actually dispatch on site. We set up a dispatch center there. And that dispatchers handle not just the law enforcement calls, the concerns at the fairgrounds, but also dispatch fire and EMS, rescue, within the fairgrounds as well. It's important to have that coordination. Again, that information flowing through one central point ensures that fire, who might be operating on one radio channel, law enforcement operating on another channel, know when something is going on both ways. General tasks, again, establishment of communications, meetings. We went backwards again, I think, yeah. Okay. We establish a major presence of deputies at each gate. There's basically 3 main gates at the fairgrounds. We have a tent or building at each of those 3 main gates. The rationale behind that, frankly, is that I want families coming in to feel comfortable. Okay, the sheriff's office is here. But I also want those who might have other motives, criminal, my dad would call them hellions. Okay? Just that they go, whoa, sheriff's here. Touched me. I drove back from Columbus today. I drove a marked car. People slowed down when they saw the marked car. Yeah, okay, it's the same concept. If you're coming in, and the first thing you see is law enforcement. Again, if you're a family, it's comforting. If you're something else, you go, ooh, maybe this is not a good place to do that. Again, monitoring traffic. This is a challenge for us. You push, on a given day, we can have 65,000 people come to the fair on some of the busier days. That's a lot of cars. That's a lot of traffic. We provide law enforcement. We look for unsafe conditions as well, and these may not be criminal conditions, but arcing wires, something sparking, animals. Sometimes the heat, the temperature builds, and we'll notice a steer just getting upset. There's dogs there. There's different livestock. Things that might, again, could become unsafe. And we have we provide general assistance. Our attitude, what can we do to help? you'd be surprised how many people, well, let's say, forget where they parked their car. And they think it was stolen. We've always been able to